Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Good morning, Vietnam!
You are great.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Excuse me, sir, is this the Delta House?
Sure. Come on in.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
You're listening to the 30-something Movie Podcast. Classic movies, 30 years in the making.
I have to say, an excuse to watch Animal House was wonderful.
Well, that's... Yeah, well, okay, so Bo's bringing us in here with, this is our episode for Animal House, and yeah, same thing. I realized it had been a while since I'd seen this movie, and...
Definitely been a while since I'd seen it all the way through. Like, I'll catch it on cable or whatever, and I'll watch 5-10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. It was fun to see the parts of the movie you don't see all that often.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, my wife Sharon, she will always talk about how her dad loved this movie and how he'd just sit there and laugh through the whole thing. And I think there were a couple times she looked over at me and she's like, it just must just be a guy thing, because I was doing the exact same thing. Like, I'm chuckling throughout this entire thing. This is one of those movies where it's like there are even the smallest throwaway lines that are still hilarious.
Oh, yeah. And it is totally a guy movie. Like, there is not a lot for women in this movie.
No. And I would hazard to say, after watching it this time and really keying in on some of it, not really for minorities either.
No, I can agree with that.
Yeah. Not there's several things about this maybe would not get made so much today. But, yeah. All right. Well,
that's putting it mildly.
Well, yeah. But we're going to talk more about that. So tonight it is episode, well, it's tonight for us, maybe today for you, whenever you're listening to this. But this is episode number 207. We are jumping a little bit further back than usual. This year would be the 40th anniversary of Animal House. So we are going to jump back an extra 10 years beyond what we would normally do. And we're going to be talking about Animal House this time around. So very, very quickly, spoiler alert, if you have not seen this movie, first of all, go watch it right now. And then come on back. If you don't mind being spoiled, we are going to spoil it. We're going to talk all about it. So if you don't mind, you can stick around. No need to go anywhere, but we just want to give you fair warning in case you have not seen it and would rather see it first. If you have not left us a review on iTunes, please do that. If you've been listening to the show and you like what you're hearing and you want to leave us some feedback, you can join the rest of us. Come join us. Join the fraternity, as you will.
There it is.
There you go. We promise not to spank you too hard.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Thank you, sir. May I have another? So please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave reviews there as well. And feel free to visit our website, 30podcast.com, to find more ways you can get in touch with us and interact with the show. We have a voicemail, line, email, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So if you want to hear more about the show or interact with us more, feel free to go to our website, 30podcast.com. Once again, I have with me Pat. Pat, how you doing?
Great, John. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And I've got Bo.
Yo.
There we go. There's Bo. All right. So we're going to be talking Animal House tonight. I think I don't have a whole lot of new movie stuff right now. So we're just going to jump right on into Animal House. And Animal House was released on the 28th of July, 1978. It was rated R for some very obvious reasons. It was a runtime of 1 hour and 49 minutes. Directed by John Landis, who did An American Werewolf in London and Blues Brothers. Produced by Ivan Reitman, who did Ghostbusters and Twins, among many other things. And also produced by Maddie Simmons, who did the other National Lampoon Vacation movies. Writers for this one were Harold Ramis, who died in 2014, who also did Ghostbusters and Stripes. Douglas Kenney, who died in 1980, who also wrote Caddyshack. Chris Miller also wrote Multiplicity. Cinematography was done by Charles Correll, who died in 2004. He also did Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Music was done by Elmer Bernstein, who died in 2004. He did Magnificent Seven and Ghostbusters. The budget for this one was $3 million. The box office was $141.6 million. So it made a bit of money. Thomas Hulse played Larry Kroger. He was in Amadeus and Parenthood. Stephen Furst, who died in 2017, was Kent Dorfman. He was in The Dream Team and Babylon 5. Mark Metcalf played Doug Niedermeyer. He was in One Crazy Summer and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Mary Louise Weller played Mandy Pepperidge. She was in Fantasy Island and Q, the Winged Serpent. Martha Smith played Babs Jansen. She was in the TV series called Scarecrow and Mrs. King. James Doughton played Greg Marmalard. He was in Spies Like Us and V. Kevin Bacon played Chip. Thank you, sir. May I have another Diller? He was in Footloose and Mystic River. John Belushi died in 1982. He played John Blutarski. He was in Saturday Night Live and Blues Brothers. Karen Allen played Katie. She was in Raiders of the Lost Ark and Starman. James Widows played Hoover. He was in Charles in Charge. Tim Matheson was Eric Stratton, or Otter. He was in The West Wing. Peter Riegert was Boone. Donald Schoenstein, he was in The Mask. Bruce McGill was Daniel Simpson Day. He was in My Cousin Vinny and MacGyver. Donald Sutherland was Professor Dave Jennings. He was in the Hunger Games movies. John Vernon, who died in 2005, played Dean Vernon Wormer. He was in the Dirty Harry movies. Verna Bloom played Marion Wormer. She was in The Last Temptation of Christ. Cesare DeNova, who died in 1992, was Mayor Carmine DePasto. He was in Cleopatra. And Sarah Holcomb played Clarette DePasto. She was in Caddyshack. So Animal House gets an 81% from Flick Metrics. That's a 91 from the Tomato Meter, a 89 from Rotten Tomatoes audience score, 76 from IMDb, a 71 from Letterboxd, and a 79 from Metascore. It was a winner of the People's Choice Award, Favorite Non-Musical Motion Picture, and nominated for Writers Guild of America Best Comedy. At a 1962 college, Dean Vernon Wormer is determined to expel the entire Delta Tau Chi fraternity, but those troublemakers have other plans for him. Here is the trailer, and we'll be back in just a second.
This is Faber College in 1962. You know, 1962 had to be the best year of my life. I was a member of Delta Tau Chi. The Deltas. What a great bunch of guys. Bluto. Hoover.
Raise your right hand.
Pinto. Flounder.
Flounder?
D-Day. Boone.
It's not gonna be an orgy. It's a toga party.
And look at me in 62. The Otter. School was fun in those days. The girls. The party. The friendships. The girls. Of course, we had our problems.
Find me a way to revoke Delta's charter.
You're out. Finished at Faber, expelled. I want you off this campus at 9 o'clock Monday morning. Let's go!
National Lampoon's Animal House, starring John Belushi, Tim Matheson.
Would you go out with me?
And Donald Sutherland as Jennings.
Now, was Milton saying being bad is more fun than being good?
National Lampoon's Animal House.
Before we start talking about the movie, though, I did want to say I was doing some quick napkin math as I was watching this.
Mm-hmm.
This might be the ultimate movie to connect all of Hollywood to Kevin Bacon.
Mm-hmm. It could be.
Because through Tim Matheson, you get the entire cast of The West Wing, which is pretty crazy. Through Stephen Furst, you get a whole sci-fi wing with Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you branch out from this movie and you get kind of everybody within 2 to 3 degrees of separation. It's kind of crazy town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had forgotten he was in it, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Well, because not a very big part, but...
No, but crucial enough that I was...
All is well. I mean, so a couple of quick things that I found background-wise, this either from IMDb or Wikipedia. According to John Landis, Universal Pictures President Ned Tannen objected so strongly to the Dexter Lake Club scene that he interrupted a screening of the film and ordered the scene be removed immediately. This is the club where Otis Day and the Knights are playing. He said that
Otis loves us!
Wait till Otis sees us! He loved us!
He said he interrupted a screening and ordered the scene be removed immediately, claiming it would cause race riots in the theaters. In response, John Landis, the director, screened the film for Richard Pryor, who then wrote a note to Tannen, which read, and I'm going to edit some of it, Ned, Animal House is blank funny, and white people are crazy. Love, Richard.
Well, there's your endorsement.
There's your endorsement.
And if we dance with your dates.
If I were you, I would be leaving. What a good idea. Dwayne Jesse, so speaking of Otis Day, Dwayne Jesse performance as Otis Day was so successful, he legally changed his name to Otis Day and started touring and recording with his band, Otis Day and the Knights.
That's cool on beyond so many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
That's very sweet.
John Belushi's performance at the cafeteria scene was entirely improvised. When he began piling food on his tray, director John Landis urged the camera operator to just stay with him. The infamous "I'm a zit" gag was also improvised, so the reaction you're seeing from the cast is completely genuine. Pat, I told you this one earlier today. I thought this was funny. Sean McCartan, who played the, quote, lucky boy, is how he's listed in the credits, whose wish for a playmate magically comes true when she crashes through the window towards the end of the movie. And he says, "Thank you, God." You remember that part?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
He went on to become a pastor at a local church in Cottage Grove, Oregon, and a newspaper headline about his story was written as "Lucky Boy is still thanking God."
Ooh, that's good.
That's awesome. Babs becomes a tour guide at Universal Studios, according to the final scenes of the movie, where they tell what ended up happening to everybody. And apparently the credits for this and other John Landis films contain an advertisement for a tour at Universal Studios, and the ad always said, "Ask for Babs." And as of 1989, so apparently from when this came out to about 1989, Universal Studios actually honored a promotion where they'd either give you a discount or free entry if you said, if you asked for Babs when you came to buy your tickets to Universal Studios.
That's pretty cool.
So had I known that and been old enough, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I've never been to Universal, but that would have been good to know.
Mm-hmm. During interviews, this is the scene that my wife says was probably the most either jarring or scarring for her. During the interviews conducted for the 30th anniversary of the film, Karen Allen revealed some interesting trivia about her nude scene with Donald Sutherland. John Landis wanted her to bare her bottom in the film, and she was very reluctant to do so. Donald Sutherland stepped in and offered to bare his as well, and she said, "I thought he was so sweet to do that, so I sort of let go of my objections and said, okay, well, I guess if Donald Sutherland is going to bare his bottom, by golly, I'll bare mine too."
Wow.
That's funny, and that scene is hysterical. For Donald Sutherland just walks in like nothing's happening, and
oh, there they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then during filming, last thing I got here, during filming, John Belushi would often go to local nightclubs to check out the various bands. He was fascinated by a musician named Curtis Salgado. Salgado's sunglasses, harp playing, and love of the blues inspired Belushi to form the Blues Brothers with his fellow SNL cast member Dan Aykroyd.
There it is.
So that is also pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I did read several things in here about how the director purposefully kept John Belushi away from the college campus and the rest of the cast, because I guess to keep up the keep up the act of being rowdy college students, the cast would drink and party a lot. And John Landis was well aware of the need to keep John Belushi away from all that.
Oh, yeah.
So apparently they put him, I think it was him and his wife, they put the two of them, because his wife has a very small part in this movie too. I think he put them up in a hotel, I think it said like 30 miles away, just to make sure he was not anywhere near any of the campus life kind of stuff. So that's all the background I've got for Animal House. Silly question to ask. Is this the first time you've seen this movie?
Surely you jest, sir.
I do jest. I just thought I'd ask it because that's usually how we open. But so let's ask it this way then. When was the first time you saw this movie?
Wow. I was probably in high school.
Okay.
I think I was a little bit after high school when I saw it. I think I was college when I finally got a chance to see it.
I'm pretty certain it was probably senior, maybe junior or senior year in high school. And it just, I think that was so this is what college is supposed to be like.
Exactly like that.
Well, man,
Endless toga parties. And, and, you know, isn't that what it turned out to be?
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. I do remember one of the very first T-shirts once I got onto campus at the University of Illinois. One of the very first T-shirts I bought was I found a T-shirt that just said college across the front.
Oh, outstanding.
And that was the first college T-shirt that I bought. And I was very happy with that T-shirt, and I wore it many, many times until it could no longer be worn.
I remember that shirt.
Mm-hmm. And I want to, just to be ironic, I said the other day, I want to see if I can go find a T-shirt that's the same color of navy blue and the same kind of like block white lettering that says like middle school, and maybe just wear that to work sometime.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be good.
It may not have quite the same effect, but
people that are in the know would understand.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And I could
Your
walk in.
People would get it.
I could walk into work and then just down an entire bottle of whiskey.
That's right.
And then go about my day.
No, it's middle school. I think you'd have to downgrade to like a 2 liter of Coke or something, right? Like, wouldn't you have to
Probably.
step it down a little?
Yeah. Well, and I was kind of under the impression, knowing John Belushi's past, I was almost under the impression that was an actual bottle of whiskey that he downed. Come to find out, it's iced tea.
I guess it wouldn't surprise me, but you got to figure he had to probably deliver lines after that. So, you know.
Well, and apparently he was this was a point at which he was trying to stay clean. At least that's what I read. And that he kind of saw Animal House as being a really good opportunity for him, so he didn't want to mess it up, which is why he agreed to a lot of, when John Landis said, I'm going to put you in a hotel 30 miles away, just so you don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
I think he agreed to a lot of that because he saw this as a really good opportunity for his career, and he was trying to stay somewhat clean, or at least maybe away from the alcohol. Didn't quite stay so much away from the other stuff, but for some reason, knowing his history and everything else, I had always kind of thought, you know what, it wouldn't surprise me if that was an actual bottle of whiskey that he downed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for this movie, I'm not even sure where to start with this one. I would ask if there's a favorite scene, but it's like the entire movie is a favorite scene.
Right.
I kind of have a hard time picking out what even a favorite scene might be. I mean, I love the cafeteria scene. I love that part, and that part I've actually shown. You know, I won't show a whole lot of the rest of the movie to the kids, but I've shown John that part. I was like, because we were joking about something one day, and I said, "Oh, I have something funny I want to show you," because I figured he would appreciate the whole idea of this guy just like taking all the food and eating as he goes, and
right,
doing all that stuff. So he's seen that part. We're gonna wait for the rest of the movie later on, but. And I do feel like I kind of chuckled a little bit when I finally got to college, and I was like, okay, I get to college, and this is actually how we get to eat. There's a cafeteria, and I just scan my card, and now that I'm here, I can get whatever I want as long as I don't leave the cafeteria. I could keep eating.
Right.
This is magical, and so I had it pictured as like Animal House was right. Yeah. I can just come here and get whatever I want. And
well, then you're just waiting for the rest of it to come true.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's when disappointment hits.
And that didn't really so much happen. But yeah. So yeah, no, I have a hard time picking out favorite scenes from this movie. I like how this movie starts off, and you think that it's going to be a nice movie about college, and I mean, if you went to go see the movie, the movie is called Animal House, and you know who's in the movie, so there's going to be some crazy stuff going on. But you start with the rousing kind of college anthem, and you see all the Faber stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, college movie, yeah, this will be good.
And I just want to say, you mentioned like the college theme and all that. It was great to see Elmer Bernstein do the soundtrack for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like some of the little musical hits and musical cues were very reminiscent of, well, the two big ones I know him from with Great Escape and Magnificent Seven. And so, some of the melodies and some of the like I said, music interlude, incidental music that was played. I mean, it was very cool because it was his music, and so it had all those very characteristic touches. So I kind of jumped in there on the music when you were talking about like the college fight song thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the music's fantastic. The way they weave in the score with the popular music, the whole thing is just, it lends it. Yeah, I'm making no sense right now, but you know what I mean.
So when thinking of this movie, if I was going to force us to pick a favorite scene,
you are,
because I'm going to, and Pat, you're not allowed to reject the question.
Okay, I'm ready.
But if he's not allowed to reject the question, John, you have to limit yourself to only like 2 or 3. You can't go with 5.
Okay. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Well done, sir.
Thank you. Okay. I might. See, I was going to go with the cafeteria scene because I love that cafeteria scene. And like you just said, the music is great. I'm a big Sam Cooke fan. And so, that the song is playing, you've got him going through the cafeteria doing all the crazy stuff. And I love how he makes the horse noise when he goes past Niedermeyer in the neck brace. And okay, now I have to decide, is it that scene or is it the Dexter Lake Club scene? Because I do like both of those. What school do you go to? Oh man, I'm gonna pick the cafeteria scene.
All right,
I do like that one. I like the whole thing from the moment he walks in to the food fight at the end. I think I'm gonna go with that one.
Is it we can only pick one scene, or are we limited to 3, or what is it?
No, you can only pick one.
Ooh, 1.
Yeah, I did that.
I think if John can limit himself to 1, we can try. John's usually the one who has no chance.
I know.
I think we can give it the old college try.
Well
I see what you did there.
That's very well done.
The cake pulling on screen is pretty good. For the float.
Yes.
Thing.
The eat me float. Yeah.
Yeah, and that that was pretty funny. The guy coming in on the bike, what's his name? Not War Machine.
D-Day.
D-Day.
And he comes in and he rides the bike up the stairs, and I mean, that was good. Oh man!
I never, by the way, made the connection. I knew Bruce McGill. I knew who he was, but I never really made the connection to D-Day until this viewing of the movie.
Really?
That's hysterical.
What?
The actor who plays D-Day, he's just, now that he's older, he was in a show my wife watched, and he's just older and not, I don't know, it's just hard to make the connection. Older, put on a few pounds.
Yeah, I'm trying to narrow it down, and I just keep throwing scenes out there. I mean, that one was really good.
My favorite will always be, and I think I quote it more often than I should. Over. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Germans?
Forget it, he's rolling.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Or the other one when they're in the courtroom scene, and he's like, point of parliamentary procedure. They're serious this time. Would you stop? He's like, don't worry about it. I'm pre-law. I thought you were pre-med. What's the difference?
Same thing.
Well, and John Belushi is just able to like get you laughing. I mean, he can just not even say anything, and you can be rolling laughing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that was my wife's point watching it this time around. She's like, how many lines does he actually have in this movie? Because he doesn't talk much.
Yeah.
Dogga.
Your nickname, your pledge name will be Pinto. Why Pinto? Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, and the way he delivers that, it's oh man.
That scene is fantastic too.
Yeah, what is he? He's watering the lawn when they come up, right? He's watering the lawn. Hey, hi,
watering the lawn.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we refer to it up in northern Wisconsin.
Okay.
Okay.
I do still like when they're reading off the when he's got the guy's grades.
Yeah.
He's like
0.0.
Yes, Daniel Simpson Day has no grade point average. All classes incomplete. Mr. Blutarski, 0.0.
Yeah. Yeah. Later, the senator and Mrs. Blutarski.
Yes. At the end, that's probably one of my favorites too. Is at the end of the movie, it's Senator and Mrs. Blutarski.
Of course.
Oh man, I'm just flying through every scene here, and I gotta pick a favorite. Maybe I'll stick with the cake. I'll stick with the cake when that cake pulls out, and that's that whole thing at the end is pretty darn good. Yeah, that should be it.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta lock it in. I can't change it. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going back, guys. I'm gonna stick with that one.
Okay. Are there any other? Can you think of any other like college movies or maybe even high school movies? Are there any others that even you could compare to Animal House? Because I know that there have been, more recently. I remember going to watch the Van Wilder movie.
Oh yeah.
That came out years ago, and I think even Tim Matheson was even in that movie.
And how classic was he showed up because didn't the Van Wilder kept referring to his dad? And back when my dad was in school, and then it's Tim Matheson was the Yeah.
Can you think of any other movies? Is there anything that is in the same vein as this, like the college movie, the school movie, that even comes close to something like this? I mean, I'm thinking if you go to the high school, you could look at like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
How about?
Is there anything that comes close to Animal House, do you think?
How about Road Trip?
Road Trip's a good one, yeah.
Road Trip was pretty good. That or Old School? Old School being more from the angle of not guys that want to leave college, but guys that are like, dude, I want to get back to college.
Yeah.
So those would be the only two that would come to mind.
Okay. Yeah, I just always try to think, is there anything, I mean, you kind of think of this as being like the quintessential college movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that's come out either before or since that you would say, is there anything we could think of as being like a better college or high school, just like teenagers behaving badly kind of movie?
Yeah, this one's it, man. This is the one that I grew up and I'd always hear my folks talk about and my dad reference it, and they would just tell stories about it. And so like when I finally saw it, it was like, ooh, there's that scene. I've been hearing about that forever. Oh, there's that scene. Oh my. I didn't remember hearing about that scene. I mean, so this one was always it, This was it.
Yeah, I can't come up with anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I recently, and I had not seen it before, I recently watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I had not seen it before, and as I was watching, I was like, you know what? This is a little bit. I mean, this is like a high school Animal House, basically. Came out just a few years after Animal House, but like this is kind of like a high school Animal House. This is probably the closest movie I could think of to being in the same kind of style as like an Animal House. All right. Well, I wanted to try to do our best to just not spend our entire time quoting the movie, but that's pretty much what we've done. Is we spent our entire time quoting the movie, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if there's much else to say with this movie other than this. This is it, man. And I'm repeating what I just said a minute ago. This is the college movie that everyone's got to compare themselves to. You know, it's like that old saying of you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and this movie is the best.
So often we talk about whether the movie would get made today.
Mm-hmm.
And does this cross any lines, or is it good, so good because it doesn't, and it's just that funny?
Well, I mean, it definitely crosses a few lines. I mean, you've got it's not so friendly to minorities. You've got quite a few Me Too moments in this movie. I don't know. I don't know that this one does get made today. Although I can't imagine that it's really like some of the humor. I can't imagine it's really that far off from, let's say, like The Hangover or Bridesmaids or that new one they just did with the puppets. And
right, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, are we coming back around on some of that, or do those movies get away with it because there's only one or two of them,
and because they were made in 1978?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, because Sharon and I talked about this when we were watching it this time. Was we kind of noticed this time. It's like, there's some stuff in this movie that maybe not so cool from 2018 sensibilities.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I hadn't seen this movie in years, and I enjoyed it just as much as I did the other times that I've watched it. So obviously, it didn't stop me from enjoying the movie.
Well, I think we've talked about this before. It seems to be easier to forgive a movie its own indiscretions, if you will, if you saw it at an older time. Mm-hmm. If you saw this brand new today, I don't know if you'd give it the pass it gets.
Right.
Because I've definitely talked to people who see a movie like Blazing Saddles for the first time and they're shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But then there's so many of us, and I include myself in this, that yeah, I understand that what it's saying is it has a lot of problems. But I can view it for the time in which it was created. But that's because I saw it many moons ago.
You know what? And the thing is that it's like, I don't know. It's a very fine line. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was like that. Was it a judge or the senator that was talking about, what's the difference between art and pornographic material? And it was, I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it. And that's kind of the thing is, like, some humor, it works and it's funny and everyone can laugh. And some humor, it's very much just like, whoa, yeah, you can't, no, you can't go there. And I wish there was a formula. I mean, I like precision. The torque wrench is my favorite tool in the garage because it's like, for a reason. I don't like going by feel, and I wish there was like a precise measurement for it, but there really isn't, And I mean, cue the debate of, well, is it okay for, if you're a member of that race or community, are you allowed to poke fun at it and make the comments and use the denigrating language just because you're a member of that group, ethnicity, what have you? Or should everyone be able to? Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, it's really, we can get this conversation just going forever, but it's just a fine point whether it's appropriate or not.
Well, and I got to figure if Richard Pryor watched it and he thought it was hilarious, then I think I'm probably okay with it.
Well, and there it is. I mean, that was that cool story where he wrote to whoever was the producer, whoever, and just said, yeah, this has to go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, a little bit of a tangent, but maybe not quite so much. Last week we were talking about high school when we talked about the movie Stand and Deliver, and asked about kind of a favorite high school teacher or a teacher in general, and kind of how that inspired you. I'm going to take a slightly different route this time. Uh-oh. And you kind of know where I'm going?
I think I do.
Yeah. Do you have any crazy college age stories? Well, let me put the caveat in that you are willing to share on the podcast.
Yeah, that is the tough part there, isn't it?
Ask the inverse. How many days did a crazy college story not happen? And then I think that's for that. Yeah.
Well, I will tell the story about my roommate, one of my roommates that I really did not get along with at all, and it was I never had a desire to try to pledge to any of the fraternities on campus. Like that was never a thing for me. It was, and I don't know if it was after watching this movie, I was just like, yeah, no, I think I'm good. I'm very happy to be an independent, but I had a roommate in particular that, and I won't even list the name of the fraternity that he was a part of, but I had a roommate, and he was a fraternity member, and we were both freshmen and living in the dorms, and he was pretty much drunk every night, so it was a little difficult to do homework and things like that in my actual dorm room because he would do much heavy drinking. And I remember one time he came back kind of late, and he was obviously a little sauced, and he decided that he had the top bunk on the bunk bed that we had in the dorm room, and he decided he didn't want to crawl all the way up to the top bunk, so he tried to pull me out of the bottom bunk so he could just take my spot. And I was like, no, that's not cool. So I kicked him to try to get him to go away. So I kicked at him a couple times until he did start to go away. And then he kind of stumbled around a little bit, and I guess he had locked the door behind him because he was then trying to get out of the room. And apparently he was trying to get out of the room so he could go to the bathroom. But he was unable to get the lock to work. Therefore, he decided to use the inside of our dorm room door as his urinal.
Yeah, that's not great.
That wasn't great. So when he did finally get the lock to work, he left the room, and I very quickly got up and locked the door behind him so he couldn't get back in. And then, and the person I am today would not have done this, but the person I was back then did do this. I pulled down all of the sheets off of his bunk and cleaned everything up using his sheets.
Nice move.
Oh, man.
And then apparently what he did was, because he couldn't get back in the room and I pretended to be asleep, he stumbled into one of our neighbors' rooms and fell asleep on their floor. And then the next morning he came back in and he was like, oh man, last night, I think it was a rough night. Yeah, I don't know. And I said, yeah, you think? I said, yeah, no, you came in the room and I think you got stuck in the room for a minute. I was half asleep and I don't think you could get the door open, and you peed all over the floor. And then what you did was you pulled all of your sheets off and cleaned it up. And I don't know why you did that, but he's like, oh man, I did? Really? I was like, yeah, you totally did.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't drink that much again. Said, yeah, no kidding, you think? So that was my fun first year of college, was dealing with that guy. Thankfully, he only lasted a semester, and then I think he moved into the frat house after that. But that kind of solidified for me that I did not want to be a member of a fraternity. And my only other crazy stories that happened in college after that are pretty much times that I worked for the student newspaper, and like some of the crazy stuff that I would like be reporting on as a reporter for the newspaper and stuff like that. But that was kind of like my crazy dorm story from the beginning of college.
Yeah.
There is still a night of karaoke that I don't actually remember.
Okay.
Someone had gotten some deal at a bar downtown, and it was like all you can drink for $20 for 3 hours or something. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
That's a recipe for disaster.
I don't remember singing karaoke, but everyone says I did. Thank God it was just before camera phones were popular enough that someone recorded it.
Mm-hmm. Back when we could still get away with things.
Yeah, I left my jacket at the bar. Loved that jacket too. But geez, was that a night.
Do you remember what you sang?
Well, no, but I know what people told me I sang, and
okay.
That's the part of the story I'm just going to hold on to for a little while.
Oh, okay. That's the one you're not sharing? Was it Islands in the Stream?
No, it was not.
Okay.
Every rose has its thorn.
Oh, see that? If I pulled that off, I'd be like, yeah, dude, me. Because something tells me I either butchered it or I killed it because I was so hammered I didn't care.
I want to believe that you killed it.
I'm gonna picture in my head that you had a rousing rendition of the Copacabana.
See again. That's another one. I'd be like, yeah, buddy.
Okay.
I did that.
Well, that's in my mind. I'm going to picture that that's what you did.
Perfect. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was. Oof. Yeah.
All right, Pat. What did you do?
I got nothing that can be said on this podcast. I'm sorry. There's quite literally.
The statute of limitations
Uh-huh.
does not run out on some of Patrick's stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe me, I'm in the same boat.
I think we need to have the after hours podcast discussion. I think that needs to.
Is that for the people that donate to the podcast? We have a special.
That we can
special episode. Mm-hmm.
We can tell the college stories.
There you go.
I knew a guy that had to rough his roommate up. A real good friend of mine, Sean. He had to rough his roommate up. That was just out of hand and all that. Kind of what you were describing, John. And I guess they were in a suite, so there were like 4 or 5 guys in the room, but it was like a bigger room. And finally, he'd had enough, and the guy came in and was whatever. And I think Sean is a big dude from Minot, North Dakota. Family farm and everything, and I think he picked the guy up by his throat and had him against the door and was just like, "Now look, this is the way we're gonna roll until you can find another room," And he just he had to set him he had to set him right. It's just chock full of those stories. My apartment that we eventually moved into, when Tammy would come to stay, my parents never had any fear about her coming to stay because they knew that she would never ever go in that apartment. She would always stay with the girls down because it was just it was a rough apartment. I'm just gonna say it was rough. We didn't get the security deposit back and things. And I'm telling you, by the end, it was rather Animal House like.
Mm-hmm.
It seriously was. I'd be sitting there on my porch and there'd be guys and. It was like the musician's ghetto. You could hear trumpets being practiced all over the neighborhood every morning. And all of a sudden, I was sitting on the porch, and all
that really rough neighborhood,
right? Yeah. And then you'd hear a little eep pop, and it was like, what is that? And I'm looking, it's this guy across the street, a buddy of mine from across the street, and I'm like, dude, what is that? He's like, they're bottle rockets. I'm like, oh. And all of a sudden, I look down and go back to reading. All of a sudden, the pop was right next to my head. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to hit you. Hold still. And he was launching bottle rockets directly at me from across the street. So I had to duck down and take cover and get out of the way. And it was, it was just like that. It was just like that. I'm trying to think of what else could be safe stories. Okay, so here, I'll give you the sanitized version. And see, none of these stories, when you sanitize them, are really good stories. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But so we're sitting there, and it was we graduated. I finally graduated, and I made it out in 5 years in college, and making it out as a music ed major in 5 years was like a record. Not a record, but that was fast. That was the fast track. Most everyone averaged 6. There were a couple, when Belushi was 7 years of college down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
There were a number of guys that were there 7 years, easy, and so we're sitting there, and so we decided to throw a party, and it literally was what they tell you in high school: don't throw a party when your parents are gone, and say, "Well, I'm going to only invite 2 people," because they'll invite 2 people, and they'll invite 2 people, and it just
on and so on.
Exactly, and that's exactly what happened. So by the end of the night, I'm sitting there, and it's I'm sitting there in my apartment, and it's just beyond crowded. I'm trying to think of a size. The entire square footage of our apartment was probably the size of our teacher's lounge at Middle North. And I want to say we easily had 100 to 200 people there. It was
a lot of people.
Oh, it was. And I walked in, and I'm just like, man, I don't know some of these guys. And then I'm sitting there, and there's these guys in tuxedos and stuff. And I'm sitting next to the guy. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Good. This is a good party. I say, yeah. He says, yeah, I don't know who the host is, but now we were in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and the guy was like, yeah, we're from the Lacrosse Symphony. I'm like, you're from the Lacrosse Symphony? And a buddy of mine played in the Lacrosse Symphony, and he's like, yeah, Eric was telling us, at rehearsal tonight or at the gig tonight, he said there's this great party going on up the street at Eau Claire. It's a graduation party. So yeah, we decided to show up, and it was the entire bass section, half the cello section, two of the percussionists, the brass section, like the entire symphony came up and was at this, and it was, and they literally, like, no one knew who anyone was, but it was, and then it was one of those that, like, the next morning I woke up on my couch and there was a couple, like my roommates and some of my friends that lived at the apartment downstairs were there, and it was literally like you kind of come to, and it was, I think we had to get the recycling bin and use a shovel, just shovel everything into a recycling bin to get it out. Yeah, that one was pretty exciting.
Now, follow-up question: are brass symphony players hard partiers?
Well, that was my
Our symphony guys hard partiers?
Yeah.
I think what John is really reaching for is which section parties the hardest.
Yeah.
Oh. Which section parties the hardest? There's the different personalities. I mean, the brass players, drummers, but any of them really. It's really like the music parties get pretty hopping. I'm biased, but I mean, it gets pretty crazy. And that's why really when you go into like the band room or the orchestra or whatever, and like teachers are just like, these kids are out of control. It's like, you kind of have to grow up amongst them to understand that, nope, these are just musicians blowing off steam.
Mm-hmm.
And now we, as teachers, you have to keep control of the kids, but it's just like, yeah, nope, these are just musicians and this is just what happens, so yeah, I guess that would be, that would be the story. I'm going to stop talking or I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Everybody's got their thing. If you're a language arts teacher, you sit around, you drink scotch and you recite poetry. That's what you do.
I remember there was this book, Bo, you played in band, right?
I did as a young boy, yes.
What did you play?
Clarinet.
Okay, so there's this book. It's a trumpet book, and it is 2 inches thick. It's called the Arbin Book, and it is like the Bible. It's got the quote unquote, I'm doing quote fingers, the quote Bible, and it's like literally every kind of exercise you can possibly imagine for the trumpet, and it's several hundred pages of exercises. You never would sit down. I mean, you would like, okay, today I'm going to work out of this section. Today I'm going to work out of this section. And I remember one night these two guys decided to play through the whole thing. And they sat there, and it was like the point in the evening, and you know what I'm referencing, the point in the evening when everything is a good idea. And like the instruments came out, and they started at like at closing time. Or maybe they came back before, it was like 11. It was before closing time, but they started at like 11 at night. And at 7 or 8 o'clock the next morning, they were still going. And by the time everything came to, they had to like not play trumpet for a day because their jaws were like just, everything was just sore, because they've been playing trumpet for like 8 hours straight.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's crazy stuff.
All right. Well, I think those are the only stories that we're going to be able to tell on the podcast.
It's sanitized.
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like watching The Terminator, but having it being edited for TV.
Right.
Quick, end the podcast so we can tell the real stories.
There you go. But if you're ever, any of our listeners, if you're ever around the Chicago area and you want to hang out sometime and buy us a beverage or something like that, we'll happily tell you some of the other stories. So just let us know if you're in the Chicago area, and we'll meet up with you sometime. But that's probably going to do it for this time around. We'll cut ourselves off there so that we don't delve too far into the college craziness and get ourselves into trouble. But is there anything else we want to say about Animal House before we go?
Great movie. Everybody should see it.
There you go.
Yes, it's outstanding.
Well, that's going to do it for Animal House this time around. And next time, so this is finishing off our month of kind of high school, college aged kid movies. And so next month, Pat, I do apologize. We are getting into October. I know it's not your favorite.
It's rough, man. It's rough.
So, but next time around, we've got our month of Halloween-themed movies. And so here's a list of what we're going to try to get to. This is a lot of movies. I think this October has 5 Wednesdays in it. So we got an extra episode this time around. We'll see what we can get to with this, but this is a list of kind of what we're hoping to get to for this next month. We're going to start the month off with The Blob, and I'll drop in, I've got copies of the 1958 and the 1988 movie, so we'll see if we're able to watch both of those before we talk about that one. Then there's the movie Pumpkinhead from 1988.
Mm-hmm.
There is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is reaching a milestone year. It came out in 1948, so it's reaching a milestone this year, so we might have a chance to talk about that one. And then if we are able to get together a group of people, we might do kind of like what we did for some of the other movies that we've seen and maybe go watch a movie and then just record something for it right after. Venom comes out this month, so if we're able to do that for the Venom movie, I'd like to try to do that, but we'll just kind of have to see what happens. So we have those coming up. One thing I'm also thinking, because we've had some suggestions from listeners on other movies that we could do that we have not covered yet on the podcast, is we've had suggestions for the movies Shootout, Midnight Run, and A Fish Called Wanda. So those are not in our rotation for the rest of the year, but I'm kind of thinking if something falls through on one of the other movies, maybe we can do one of those. Or maybe if we just have like some extra time sometime, we can throw one of those movies in and do a show, do a quick show on one of those or something.
God, Fish Called Wanda. I haven't even thought about that movie in a while.
And so, you know what? I have not seen that movie, but
no way! It's
I haven't seen it.
Christopher Guest tree of movies.
Well, I know, and I think one of my original reasons when I saw that title when last year when I was going through and making the list for what movies we would do this year, I think when I saw that title, I think I thought that was Dudley Moore in Arthur.
Ah.
I think I saw that and I thought, oh, that's that Dudley Moore movie, and I don't like Dudley Moore. So
Fish Called Wanda's great.
I know, and then I looked to see who was actually in that movie. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Why have we not done that one?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
It's like half the cast of Monty Python right there.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So at some point, we can see if we can try to fit that one in at some time in the next 3 months before the end of the year is out. But also, very, very quick before we go, the end of the year is coming up soon, so that means 1989 is also going to be coming up very soon. And Pat, we are finally going to get to Batman.
4 years of waiting.
It's there. You've been waiting for years. You're just a few more weeks away.
I can make it, man. I can make it.
As long as you can make it. That's the dictionary definition of delayed gratification is for you. I think on maybe one of our very first episodes, you talked about how excited you were for Batman. We're like, dude, that's like 5 years away.
Dude, I hope we're still doing the podcast then. I think I was like, guys, 1989. Dude, get to do Batman. Pat, that's like 4 or 5 years away. You realize that?
It's 2015 right now. That's like 4 years away.
This place is great. We gotta sleep here tonight. Camp out. To try it out.
Try it out.
I'm gonna go get our stuff.
I think we'll take it. So that being said, I have kind of shared a list of potential movies with the other guys that host the podcast with me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to also take a form of that list and share it out with the people who are listening to the podcast. And if you would like to vote on the movies you think would be good for us to cover for 89, then you can do that as well and have your voice be heard. Let us know what you would like to see, what you would like to hear from the show for next year. So that'll be going out sometime in the very near future. And then last thing I will say is I am going to be, I don't know exactly when it's coming out, so I will update that as soon as I know. But as of the time of this recording, I think once this episode comes out, it will have already have happened. When will then be now, soon. And I will be guest starring on the I Married a Movie Geek podcast. They're doing they're doing one of their movie like fantasy drafts, and so I have been very deep in researching different movies and like pulling up lists of the movies I've seen from the year that they're doing. So as soon as I have some more information on when exactly that's coming out, I'll share that out on Twitter and some other spots. But I think that's going to be a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to that too. I think we're going to record that here in a couple of days, so looking forward to doing that. But so that's everything that's going on for us. Again, if you want to find out more about the show, go to 30podcast.com. That's got all the different ways to get in touch with us. Otherwise, thank you, Bo, and thank you, Pat.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
And thank you, Otis.
Feels so good to be back.
Otis loves us. Do you think Otis? I think Otis loves the podcast. I think when we advertise this episode, it's got to be like hashtag Otis loves us.
I think that is the way to go.
Done. Got it. In the meantime, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. And my advice to you is to start drinking heavily. Everybody have a good night.
I gave my love a cherry that had no stone. I gave my love a chicken that had no bones. I gave my love a story that had no end.